Okay. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I'm Kat Timpson. I'm the treasurer of Women's Council Realtors North Central. Thanks for joining us for our monthly Hot Topics. This is where we highlight one of our strategic partners so they can do a deep dive into their specialty for you, the WCR members and realtors of New Jersey. Today, I am really pleased and honored to have Terry Darling, who is one of our strategic partners. He's the owner and operator of Home Safe Inspections. Terry, thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure, Kat. Thanks for having me. You and I had our first conversation about this topic, I think, at a holiday party in November or December. So it's great to be here today and to be a partner, in general, but also to be here today and talk about this topic, which is important and on everyone's mind as this new law came into effect this summer.
Yeah, thanks so much. So we are talking about NJ Law 4 S4117, which is also referred to as New Jersey's lead safe certification. It is, if you don't already know, a measure that Governor Murphy signed into law this summer, intending to protect children of the state from lead contamination. But Terry, this is such a new law that even realtors aren't always aware of the details. You want to talk to us a little bit about it so we can really be on the same page?
Sure, absolutely. And you're right. A lot of people in the business are unsure the requirements, the testing requirements, the reporting requirements, all those kind of things. So I think it's great that we'll discuss a few of the misconceptions and try to get to some of the things that are the most important things that we in the real estate industry need to know going forward.
Great,
So
thanks.
NJS 1147 went into effect in July of 2022. The law was passed a year before that. We had a year to get ready for it. And even though we had that year, things are still a little bit in flux. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute.
Okay.
But this law impacts 1 and 2 family homes, as well as multifamily units for buildings that were built prior to 1978, which means prior to lead being eliminated from the use in paint. So buildings built prior to 78 are impacted, but it's only rental buildings. And this is not a point of sale requirement. This is really geared towards tenant protection mostly. So that was one thing that we thought the law would originally contain information that it would be point of sale for single families as well. That's not exactly the case. It's really for properties that will be tenant occupied if they're 1, 2, or multifamily going forward.
And when you say rentals, so I think could you mind clarifying, because I know there are some stipulations about what the rentals need to be.
Yeah, that's a good question, Kat, and I'm glad you brought that up. So this is for long-term rentals that are 60 days and longer. So your shore rentals, your resort rentals, your Airbnbs, it's not applicable to those. These are going to be tenant occupied properties and typically people who have a lease in place.
Okay.
The requirement is every 3 years or upon tenant turnover, a property will need to be certified as lead dust safe. And I'm going to say that one more time, lead dust safe. We're going to talk about the difference between lead dust safe versus lead dust free as well. But the lead dust safe certification will actually be a 2-year certification once you have it from a municipality. Once that testing is done, a landlord or an owner will have that certification. So even if you have a turnover in that 2-year period, you're still good. But then every property will need to be certified every 3 years. So if you're a landlord, you're going to need to look to have this certification done every 3 years. I brought up the difference between lead dust safe and lead dust free. This testing for this law for NJS 1147 has to do with lead dust safe, which basically is testing to make sure that the lead level is below a certain point for windows, flooring, et cetera, for the dust level in the home. Lead dust free indicates that a property is free from lead for the duration of the life of that property. So there are different requirements during the renovation that a lead dust free contractor has to go through so that once that property renovation is finished, it's tested, and then it's lead dust free, and you don't have to go through this testing anymore. So if you have a homeowner, you have a landlord who has a certification for lead dust free, they are exempt from this law.
Good
But
to,
for those are good to go, right? That's why that's the top of the line if you're lead dust free. But if you need to be lead dust safe, basically you're going to have to do it every 3 years.
and if you have somebody in there, it's one thing, but it's during turnover of tenancy, right?
It is, right? So when a tenant turns over, if you have a tenant in place now and they were to turn over, let's say in November, you need to be tested at that point. Everyone has 2 years from the implementation of the law to come into compliance. So all properties should be tested before July of 2024 to make sure that they are in compliance.
Okay, so why don't we get into, so you are, I know, a certified lead dust technician. That was the certification that you were able to get from the state. You want to tell us just what sort of it means, what it looks like? Because I know there's going to be confusion about, yes, there's some understanding about which properties, but the time and then the difference between dust versus a different kind of, I guess it would be paint testing.
Sure. Yeah, and there are a couple of thresholds with this law. One is visual inspection, and the other is the dust swipe test, which actually goes off to the lab for analysis to tell you the amount of lead in the property. Our inspectors are lead dust certified technicians. Our firm is an EPA lead dust certified lead safe firm. So when you're hiring a firm to test for this, you need to make sure they have that EPA certification, that they've gone through the training, that they have that, and that they're registered with the EPA.
And this is not just to be nice, right? This is exactly what you have to get from the inspector. Like, they can't just say they have lead experience. That's not enough, right?
Correct. It's not, because the certificates that the owners will need to provide to the individual municipalities need to be from firms that are certified. That's right.
Okay.
So, and really what we're testing for, or how it's the threshold for municipalities that need testing versus those that don't. And this is a little bit confusing, but if 3% of children 6 years old and younger in a municipality have tested at a lead level which is greater than 5 micrograms per deciliter, then they have to have a lead dust swipe test. If less than 3% of the children in that municipality have tested at that level, which is 5 micrograms per deciliter, then the only test requirement is a visual. So when you're checking for chipped and peeling paint and things like that. So depending on the number of children who are impacted by lead poisoning, basically, in a particular municipality, that'll dictate the type of test that's needed, either visual or the lead dust swiping test. There is a website where you can go and check your county and the municipality in each county. It will tell you specifically if the visual test is all that's required or the lead dust swipe test is what's required. That list should change every year. The list that we have now is 2021, 2022. So you'll want to check that. We'll put a link to that as well, so agents can know that, and you can advise your clients as to which level of testing is required for that.
And it sort of boggles my mind that municipalities will be, with all the things that they have to deal with, municipalities will be responsible for telling people whether or not they need this, because that means they have to gather lead contamination and lead poisoning data annually, right?
Well, yes, it really could. And that's something that really they are keeping up with via the EPA. But you're right, it's a lot to keep up with for municipalities, which is why, even though we had a year to get ready for this, it does kind of feel like we're still playing catch up a little bit.
Yeah, that's what we've heard, and nothing against any of the amazing municipalities in New Jersey, but this is a big deal. and this is taking on a lot. And also, can you explain, Terry, are all of the municipalities able to hire the lead paint inspectors?
Well, see, that's a bit of area of confusion too, Kat, because some municipalities may be providing this type of inspection themselves. However, most municipalities are not. And it may be, the impetus may be on the homeowner or the landlord to provide that certification to the municipality. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to make sure we were certified to do this type of work so that we could provide the service to the individual landlord client or homeowner client who needed it to comply.
So when you say that the towns, some of the towns may provide it, but not cost free, I imagine, correct?
I would think not. Yeah, I would think not. So that's something that probably every homeowner who has a property that fits into this category should reach out to their municipality and find out exactly what the requirement is as far as the visual test versus the swipe test. And then also if the municipality does provide it, or if they have certified vendors who are qualified to provide the service as well.
Okay, can you actually, and if you don't mind, you certainly don't have to give all your secrets away, but if you don't mind, can you give us an indication of what we could tell our clients they could probably expect in terms of cost? Because some people, obviously, they're going to be multi-units, so it's every unit, correct?
So it is every unit and it is every bedroom, although there are some exceptions to that. It's really every bedroom up to 3 bedrooms. So if you had a 5-bedroom home that was a rental, you're only going to test the lead level in 3 of the bedrooms. So you'd have really no more than 3 bedrooms plus a common room. Every unit will have a common room and a bedroom at least.
Right.
And testing cost is a little bit fluid right now just because it's new. And what's really kind of unknown or uncertain is the lab costs. So we have affiliations with 2 different labs, and we're using both of them currently to kind of gauge their customer service and their costs as well. So our pricing is a little bit fluid. Most of the home inspectors I know, they're also trying to figure out the right price point. But I've also heard some price gouging out there at 4 figures. This is not a 4-figure service, in my opinion. And it hasn't shown to be that from a cost perspective as far as my lab costs, right? So, I think we're starting for like a studio or a 1-bedroom, we're probably starting between $200 and $300 for testing. And then it goes up from there. And then also, even though this is really related to rental units, if someone were buying a property and we were providing a home inspection for a 2 or a 3 family, or even a single family for a homeowner who just wants peace of mind to know the lead level in their home that they're going to occupy, then we offer discounted pricing because we're providing a home inspection service and this as an ancillary service as well. So there are some discounts available when you're bundling your package services together.
Great. That is a requirement. I mean, it's just important for people to know when they budget, when they're thinking about, because a lot of people, I think, Tara, that we have, at least in my business, they are investors. They're not living in the home, they're investors, and they're taking a calculated risk about what their return on investment will be. So this is just something that they have to add in for their costs. Whether or not they like it doesn't matter, but that is something that has to be added in. So what do you think maybe the top thing that we need to get from real estate agents to clients as far as information?
So a couple of things. For the client themselves, cost expectation is one, but also to understand that depending on where the property is located, you may not need the actual lab piece of the testing, right? The visual testing may suffice, meaning if the municipality or a vendor inspector comes in and can verify that the windowsills are free from chipped lead, from peeling paint, all those kind of things, that may suffice. So that's the first thing, because as you hear sort of anecdotally all these months leading up to this law, there was anxiety from investors on it, right? Thinking, this is going to be really difficult to comply with. Well, if you live in a majority of the municipalities, or your properties are in a majority of municipalities in New Jersey, the higher level of testing may not apply anyway. So you may have a lower threshold anyway, so don't worry about the swipe part of the test until you need to have it done. The other thing I think is important to note is actually our very first client for the lead testing was a renovated property in Hoboken. It was built in the 1850s, and we had an appointment set. We had to push it back 2 or maybe 3 times because the renovation was incomplete. So if you are in the process of a renovation, all work has to be done and completed before that testing can be done, because what happens with a renovation is you're kicking things up and
You get
dust
everywhere, right?
That's it. Exactly. So it has to settle and be finished. It also should be somewhat cleaned, so you don't have construction dust all over the place to a degree. And so I think that's important to know, is you can't test in the middle of a renovation.
But I would renovation tariff, I can ask that
Yeah.
you have a better chance, right, of getting, if you know about this as an investor / landlord, you know about this, you're going to do a renovation, you're going to take or you should be taking every measure you can in order to get that lead-free certification, I imagine, right? Wouldn't that be the goal if you have those renovations then, to get it so you don't have to do this again?
Yes. Yes, obviously that's the highest level of certification. And if you have that, you have nothing to worry about going forward. However, to renovate at that level, it does require a lot of additional steps. It's more expensive, which is why people don't do it that way, even with an older property. You have to remove everything that might be of an older material. It's difficult, especially if you are dealing with an historic property that you may have things that you want to preserve, et cetera. So, yeah, in a perfect world, absolutely. That's the way you would want to go. But it is a very difficult, or it's a higher bar to clear. Let's put it that way.
That makes sense. Although, of course, if you're going to have inspections every few years, got to look at the costs for that, right? For looking outward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So one, cost versus benefits. Is there an obstacle or some obstacles that you see that we can help our clients navigate right away, or even in the long term? So short-term or long-term obstacles that realtors can help with the best, because this is going to be, besides helping people manage their anxiety, because I did hear you say that, and that is their job anyway. But if there's something else, is there a major obstacle that you think we can help them with?
I think the primary thing to counsel clients with is to find someone who's a good communication point with the municipality, and look to them for guidance, and look to have an open line of communication there. Municipalities are still learning their way on this too. So if you could find someone there, you have someone locally who you can talk to, who can walk you through it and ensure that you're getting the right certification you need, that's probably the best thing. And then the other thing is, I guess, when you're dealing with this, if you have tenants in place, or even if you don't, you want to know, like, what's your expectation for, like, how long is this going to take? What are you actually going to be doing? It's not an overly invasive test. Typically, we're testing windowsills and window troughs. We're testing floor area for a sample size there. And then if there's say like a sliding door, we'll test the trough for that as well. So as long as we have surface area we can deal with, that's great. The visual is part of this as well. So an inspector is going to document peeling paint at the window, what's happening there, if paint is chipped and peeling. We talked about the 2 thresholds before. It may be the visual test is the only test we're doing. And, a municipality may require it to pass that in some way. So I think being ready for those things. And then also, if you have a tenant in place, you want to be able to tell them. These tests are usually, I'm telling people to budget about an hour. You know, if it's a one bedroom or a two, typically we're there less than that. But I always like to, you know, over budget time for a tenant so that when we're finished early, they're like, oh, good, you're done early, as opposed to like you're trying to rush and be finished in half an hour because you told them a half an hour, you don't do a good job. So, you know, setting that kind of expectation is a good thing as well. And, you know, that we're not too overly invasive, but we do need to be able to reach the windows. We do need to be able to find, you know, a square foot of clear space on the floor, things like that.
Sure, that might mean moving some furniture and that kind of thing, and you might not be able to prepare your tenant for that, or you might, depending on who and how your relationship is with them, right?
Correct. That is sometimes a difficult thing to navigate. Um, One of the things also is like flooring or rugs, you know, it's ideally you want to test on a hard surface. You can
Sure.
test for carpet or softer surfaces, but tile or hardwood floor is a better surface to test on. So, you know, any type of inspection you do, setting expectations before is always important. And when you're dealing with tenants, it's, you know, it's delicate sometimes. So I think that's really important too. But, you know, as this rolls out, I think, you know, we've got 2 years to become compliant, which is good. Oh, speaking of compliance, I think that's another good thing to talk about
Sure.
is if you're found that you have a property which is not in compliance
Yeah, I was
and
gonna
the
ask,
let
what do we do when you don't pass this inspection?
right. And so there are different thresholds of lead level for window sills, window troughs, and also for the flooring. And if a property doesn't pass that, you're considered not to be in compliance. The law states that you have 30 days to come to compliance once you know that you're not. And after that, the fine is $1,000 a week, which is steep. You know,
It's
it's very steep. But you do have 30 days to get there. So, you know, I think in most cases that's probably reasonable. If you have a tenant where they're making it challenging to do work, if
yeah.
they're occupying it, then that may be a little more challenging for sure. But if you have a vacant unit, which is a lot of this work is going to happen at turnover time, and that's what we're seeing also. We're seeing that, you know, people are doing this as tenants move out and before a new tenant moves in. Then, you know, a month, I mean, you want to get any type of remediation for anything or any type of repair done rather quickly so you can get another tenant in there too. So 30 days is probably reasonable when you have a vacancy, but nobody wants to see that kind of fine. So, you know,
But also, in fairness to landlords, it's really hard to have vacancies in general, right? So they have to sort of the push pull of when to get people in between people, or which obviously is part of the inspection, or what do they do to get it done really fast if they have a tenant in already? So that's just going to be a balance we have to help them with. And are there people who are going to be able to remediate to the state's requirements? Because I know you're an inspector, but not all of the inspectors are also remediators. Are there specifics? Will that be another growing area of, I guess, contracting?
yes, it will be for sure. And there is, and we'll add a link for the website here, but there's a website which has information on contractors who are lead dust safe qualified contractors. So you do need a contractor who's qualified to do this work. We don't do any contracting work. We're a home inspection firm, and inspectors ethically were not permitted to do any type of repair or remediation. So that's a no for us, and really for most home inspection firms, you're going to find that the same. However, it is important to find a vendor who is approved to do this. So those two websites, the one that'll show the municipality requirements and then the vendor requirements for those that are qualified to do this are very important. And those are things that your investors and you know, potential investors and clients are going to want to save, definitely.
Thank you, because that's really helpful, because we are going to be the point people to direct them to the two aspects of it, the inspection and then potentially the remediation, so that they can at least pass in lead safety, if not lead free, right? So I think there's more information that you're able to give to people. I know, Terry, you told me a little bit about you're heading in one direction for education. Do you want to tell anyone about that?
Sure, Kat, absolutely. We offer it's about a 25-minute in-person class on this. We go into a little more detail about the law, about the things that drove the law as far as what the hazards are for lead, and a little more about the process too, as far as the testing goes, and offer some things that should be of value to your clients. So we're doing that in person. We have, I think, 3 or 4 dates in September where we're doing a lunch and learn in offices, and we're offering that as a service as well. So if anyone's interested in that, they can reach out to me and we can schedule a date where we can offer that in person and answer your questions and those kind of things too. So we're happy to do that.
That is a great opportunity, you guys, everybody watching. If you're a broker, or if you think that somebody, rather that your broker would be interested in having Terry and his team in, that's a great lunch and learn. I know, Terry, you're heading towards CE, and right now it's not CE, but just as important, you guys, to get information and education about these things, not for your own sake, but really so that you can help your clients. That's the most important in this situation. So Terry, can I ask you, so you are a home inspector, and while I have you, and we haven't done an inspection together for a while, but while I have you, as a home inspector, not lead, but as a home inspector, is there something that you see that we are doing incorrectly that maybe we could help more for either our clients or help our inspectors out with as realtors?
That's a good question, Kat. Every inspection is, a little bit different, and we look at it like realtors and brokers are our partners, and we work together to manage client expectation, also to manage the inspection, and that's really important. We had a rather long inspection the other day because it ended up being a bit of a family reunion, and it was hard to just navigate through all the questions sometimes. One thing that we like to really kind of break our inspection up into 2 phases. The first part is we're really inspecting the house. The second part is we're teaching it back. And when we can run it that way, usually it goes faster and we're more thorough because we're focused when we need to be focused. And then we're teaching when we need to be delivering information, as opposed to answering questions the whole time.
Yes, start and stop. It'd be better for hold your questions till the end. Is that what you're saying?
Well, we do kind of like to do it that way. I mean, there are some exceptions, like if I have a furnace open or if I have the panel open, I want to show them something before I put it back together. We'll take them in on that. But usually that's the better way to go, because those components, this job works better when you have a plan and when you execute that plan. And if you're not performing that way, there are things you can miss, which is what you never want to do. So if you can keep your focus high and then really concentrate on that client and answering their questions and giving them your focus when the moment is right, they have a better experience. You're more focused on the property. You're less likely to miss anything. And then also what's nice about that too is the home inspection is kind of like the second date, right? So that first date, you go on a first date, like everything is great and everybody looks great. And then like you go on that second date, you spend a little more time, you get to know the person a little more. That's the way the home inspection is. So I always encourage people, especially in the beginning of the inspection, to spend some more time in the house, get to know it a little bit. Think about where your furniture is going to go now. Think about what color you want to paint that wall, measure some things, right? You're not going to miss anything on the inspection front, because I'm going to make sure you know everything you need to know before we're done. But if you just follow your inspector around the whole time, you may leave there. It may take 3 hours and you leave and you go, wow, I feel like I didn't really see the house still. So get to take that time, get to know the house a little bit. And then I'm going to make sure that you don't miss anything and you know all the maintenance things you need to know. And then all the things that might be a problem later, or maybe they're a problem now. We're going to talk about those too. And then one of the things we also always like to talk about is on inspections, we talk about the good and the bad and everything in between, but we always talk about the good too. And sometimes home inspectors are reticent to do that. But if you're in a house that's got a 40-year-old boiler, you're going to talk about that, but it might have brand new windows. And that's a big plus. So you've got to really cover all of your bases. And I think that's really important as an inspector. Communication is the biggest part of this job. And, you know, it's important to give people a quality report. Absolutely. We take a lot of pride in our reports. But what clients remember is the experience you gave them in the moment.
Yes.
And so we're always reticent. We're always very aware of that. And we try to give people a good quality experience every time.
I love that. And I just want to reiterate what you said. I thought this was really interesting. So remind your clients, everyone, remind your clients that they do not need to follow the inspector around. But I will say, Terry, for maybe new realtors and agents, they may not have as much experience with home inspections. So it may behoove them to really start to get some experience on somebody else's inspection so that they can speak to it. And then when they say to their clients, and we all say to our clients, let's let him do his job, we will ask and he